This is Karis Alexander with Deep Truth Media. I wanted to share a number of things with you that I'm looking at, and more specifically, it's this pole shift that's coming up in Comet Ison. There was an article that I posted in my blog post, which is in the description, on put out by the Telegraph publication in the UK. Says that this on the 15th of November that the pole shift is coming any day. And then we have this Comet Ison, which is revealing itself and has been for the past couple of weeks, which I find interesting, and I truly believe that this is a simulation. It's actually, there's too many coincidences here in terms of its timing and the pole shift and Thanksgiving and the feast day of Hanukkah. So that is telling me that it's just basically a simulation. It's a hybrid simulation. And also, when I look at Comet Ison, I thought the word Ison could mean Zion. Someone had said it could be ice on, thanks to the individual who regularly comments on my blog posts and shares his or her insights and wisdom with me, and revealed something to me that was very profound, which I'll share with you in a few minutes. But Comet Ison is, if you look at I, sun. So if comets, as many theologians, religious theologians adhere to, the comets are harbingers of disaster. Comet Ison could be I, meaning the physical I, or the Illuminati I, the power control force, those that presume they're on this world, that I, and then sun, meaning the body of humanity, the Son of God, right? You know, there's so many ways that you could look at it, but it's a symbolism that you want to find in this wording. So that's what I'm getting. It's either the eye, the physical eye, that we are not able to see through to the deception, or it's the eye of the power control force who has control over the sun, the body of humanity. So there's so many different ways that you can interpret things, which I find so interesting. Anyway, one thing I wanted to mention also was it's quite interesting that on Friday evening, on As It Happens is a Canadian broadcast on CBC Radio, and they did two segments, one on Doctor Who and one on Kennedy, and I thought that was interesting in reference to my blog post a few weeks ago on Doctor Who and Kennedy and the connections there. Our reality is well scripted, well narrated, and they use media in order to filter through their propaganda. So I found that quite interesting. So we're moving into a period where anything and everything imaginable will occur simultaneously. Again, anything and everything imaginable will occur simultaneously. And the power control force, those that presume to run this world, are trying to stop that from happening. Now, events of any given time are reclusively related to the events of other times. And this is so significant, and something that one of the individuals that shares on my blog, which I so appreciate. If you want to share stuff, anything you can share will help me in terms of piecing things together as well. But with regards to this grand mutation that keeps coming up for me over and over again, which will be happening on December 19th, 2020, and I'll explain a little bit about that. It's really about Jupiter and Saturn are basically going to conjoin in one element. They do that in either fire, earth, air, or water for a period of approximately 240 years. And then they shift into the next element in sequence. And so Jupiter and Saturn are going to be shifting into the air element of Aquarius on December 19th, 2020. So I think that's what they're talking about, this age of Aquarius period. That's the period. And the whole Mayan thing, I thought, too, it's like the whole Mayan thing in 2012. Really, what we're talking about is this grand mutation that's happening in 2020. And I'll tell you why, because I believe that the power control force, and many of you may already know this, and what one of my blog posts individuals shared was that if you key in December 21st, 2012, you come up to some date in August of 2020. And I thought, oh my God, this is what they're doing. They're using a different calendar than the Gregorian calendar. The Gregorian calendar is for us. And this is how they're controlling our future. The Ethiopian time clock, you can get a calculator online. If you key in the dates of any dates, and I haven't done this for the December 19th, 2020, and I will do it maybe in my next post, but we're talking that we would, according to the Ethiopian calendar, that December 21st, 2012 the actual Ethiopian date would be August the 28th, I believe, 2006. So that we're only in 2007. And that makes total sense. This is how they can manipulate and control our future. They orchestrate their events. So now it's been cemented on a conscious level. All this 2012 stuff. I mean, so much stuff happened around that. But really, what they're doing is controlling the events for 2020. And they're doing it so they're actually time traveling into the future by using another calendar, and then having us believe that we are actually in the future time frame. That's brilliant. I mean, absolutely brilliant. Nobody's talking about this, so I believe it. It's gotta be. Yeah, I was like, yes, that's how they're manipulating, and that's how they're creating our future. Because there's only the present moment. There's only the now moment. So this whole time, past and future, is something that they've created, that the universal architects have created. And so they use the now moment and create their clock or their system. And then they're operating on a whole different system than we are. So they're manipulating and creating our future en masse. Brilliant on their part. Didn't know this until now. But it makes sense. They were creating our future in the past. So we're actually living in 2007, thinking we're in 2013, and we're just creating our future. I mean, it's just brilliant. I mean, if you can understand that, it's just like, whoa, that's really cool stuff. And so I want to talk to you about some more things here, in that we are in the midst of a series of Uranus-Pluto hard aspects. This is all astrology stuff I'm going to be talking to you about. This is stuff I'm watching. Planetary alignments, pole shift. They're really key because I'll talk to you about this gentleman, Percy Seymour, brilliant man, in just a moment. And you can read about it in my blog post as well. But his views on how astrology affects human consciousness, or how the planets are affecting our sunspot activity, which in fact affects human consciousness. I've been talking about this in 2007. Very few people listen to what I'm saying, but this is what's facilitating or precipitating our evolution as a species, is the solar system, these solar cycles. So we are in the midst of a series of Uranus-Pluto hard aspects, and we have just reached the 4th square out of 7. So Uranus-Pluto squares 7 times since 2012 till 2015. And these are very hard aspects, life-changing, world-changing aspects. We're in the 4th one, which is the midpoint, and this is very key because Uranus, the planet, is very electric, and it's very sudden and revolutionary change. It's about sudden changes. And Pluto is about brutal power. And with these two aspects together, they tend to make people rebel against the power structures that are unjustly restricting their progress or the progress of the human spirit. And there are much bigger astrological cycles that are going on, such as the yugas and the great conjunctions, as I mentioned. That's happening in 2020. But this Uranus-Pluto square is really what's the impetus, and it's really going to get people, out in the streets and engaging in revolutions and stuff like that. And so you have to watch yourself. And the question becomes, what is the legacy that you are going to leave? When you think about it, what is it that you are here to do? What is the legacy that you are going to be leaving? Because there's only a certain amount of time that we're here. This is really interesting times that we're living in. It's astounding. The amount of change that we are experiencing, which is so rapid, the amount of change you can experience within yourself is so profound in terms of you being engaging gracefully or ungracefully in this grand mutation, this metamorphosis that you are undertaking is going to be going and continuing long before you and I have left this earth plane. So the question that is perplexing me and I'm asking you is, what legacy are you going to leave behind? What is it that you are here to do in order to support your evolution and the evolution of those around you? And that really becomes a question when we look at it from a bigger time scale, because the media and with all the propaganda, they make everything seem so urgent and in the present moment, and yet there is only this present moment. But we are here, and we do act within the present moment, but we are here for a certain period of time. And so the opportunity, I truly believe, is that we are to take back the thought process and our mind, which are not ours. As awareness, we're just simply resting in a constant state of paradise. We take back those faculties and those capabilities, and we use the tool to our advantage. How I said at the very beginning that anything and everything that is imaginable will become the reality. And so that's the power that we are being embodied or imbued with, that for some of us will be able to utilize and manipulate and change this world for the better. That's what's so humbling and so satisfying and rewarding, that we have everything that we need in order to change the course of events for our own lives. So this Uranus-Pluto square series that I'm talking about is just really, we're in the midst of this 4th one that happened on November 1st, 2013. Today is the midpoint, November 24th, and that's why I want to do this podcast, because now we move into a period which is going to be a little bit different. This period that we've been in since 2012, the time leading up to this square, has been one of experiencing external stimulus to initiate creative action. And the period that we're moving into, which is being precipitated by this pole shift. These are time marker, and the sunspot cycle, which I believe we are now going into the last 7 years. It's a turning point as well. That this pole shift will really speed things up, and that it will accelerate things to such a great extent that there will be natural changes, earth changes on this planet, and there will be man-made earth changes on this planet. And so what this Uranus and Pluto orb that is happening, and these are words that you probably don't understand, but maybe you can look up, is triggering us into action, to live radical action. It's going to be a stimulus initiating us into radical action to live a greater truth. And this is going to intensify. This is what we are in the midst of. It's such a glorious time. So I want to be able to use astrology more and share with you from this perspective, because the power control force, those that presume to run this world, are using astrology to manipulate us. They're using all this to manipulate us. And so, although astrology belongs to the roots of Western science, during the last few centuries, it didn't have academic continuum, and only recently received support from natural sciences. Now, Dr. Percy, who's a member of the British Royal Astronomical Society and a member of the Institutes for Physics, he's a doctor of astronomy and astrophysics, and an English expert in the area of cosmic magnetism. He has a book called Astrology Scientific Proof, was published in April of 1989. And his theory, he has a theory of which has multiple links, which explains astral influences and connects magnetism, harmonic resonance, genetics, and neurology. He explained in his theory this way: it is not accepted by almost all scientists that the sunspot cycle affects the magnetic field of the Earth, and the agency responsible for this effect is the solar wind. It is also beyond a doubt, he says, that moon causes tides in the upper atmosphere, which gives rise to electric currents, and these generate lunar daily magnetic vibration. There's also plenty of evidence that both the steady state as well as fluctuating behavior of the geomagnetic field can be used by organisms, including man, for purposes of finding direction and keeping the internal body time. This much is all well documented and widely accepted. There is evidence, largely ignored though, that positions and movements of planets as seen from the sun play a major role in the solar cycle. Furthermore, there is some evidence, highly controversial but difficult to dismiss, that some positions of the planets as seen from the Earth at time of birth are linked to personality characteristics of individuals. There's another gentleman by the name of Gonklin. He's a Frenchman who has a lot of material and talking about how solar activity is affecting human behavior. And as I mentioned in a previous blog, or podcast, which I'll link again, I was interviewed last year by Kindrid Spirit, where I explain my Kindrid Spirit is a UK publication, and the effects of solar activity on human consciousness. And in that article where I was interviewed, I was explaining how solar activity was affecting me since 2006. How certain times of the day I would get these surges of energy through my body, and the last upgrade that I got, which was September 28th, was so profound. And I anticipate there'll be others too, and so that's why I'm again focusing back on this, because I really feel, although I felt in 2007 that this information needed to be shared, it definitely is what's going to materialize on the physical world plane, and these earth changes is really integral and something that I want to continuously focus on, because this is what's supporting the evolutionary change that's happening, the grand mutation that we're coming up to in 2020, but will continue on. But this is a very intense period. We don't want to miss this period, because this is an opportunity for you to evolve. Some will evolve and some won't. You know, I think it's definitely a critical time. So in terms of one last thing that I want to share with regards to Percy, and these things can be tested, scientifically tested, is that planets affect the solar cycle in specific ways. The solar cycle affects the geomagnetic field. The geomagnetic field affects life on Earth in certain observed ways. Specifically, many species, including man, can be influenced by particular states of the geomagnetic field. The particular influences appear to correlate with the planetary positions, and Seymour also proposes that the behavior of the fetus at the time of birth is linked to the cycles within the geomagnetic field, which in turn are influenced by the solar cycle and positions of the planets. Resonance is the phenomenon by which the fetus is phase locked to specific cycles. And so this is why I say that, you know, whether you believe it or not, we are affected by astrology. It's a program. As awareness, you exist beyond the astrological program that influences your behavior and influences how you perceive the world, what you want to achieve in this world. It's a program that you're operating on, because as awareness, you're just resting. You're just resting in your constant state of paradise. There's nothing there for you to do, you know, as you rest, and you've simply been captured in this existence, and so you're running a program. The program was infused into your body in the way in which the planets were lined up at the time you were born, and then your breath, when you took your first breath, this was encoded into your biology, into your genetics. There's a correlation between your genetics and the imprinting of the astrological alignment of the planets within the solar system at the time of birth. It's just a reality, and it affects how you operate on this physical world, and it supports your evolution. I know this may be way out there stuff, but this is it. This is really, really real stuff. So to put this more specific terms, Percy Seymour's theory proposes that the planets Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune control the direction of convective motions within the sun, which generate the solar magnetic field. They do so because they play the major role in moving the sun about the common center of the mass of the solar system. This stuff is really where it's at, people. Really, truly is. You know, I watched Space Odyssey 2001, and what was the other one? 2010, the year we made contact. I'm not a science fiction person. These are old movies. I've just watched them because they're coming up in everything that I'm reading, from brain science to, you know, I'm doing a little bit more reading right now on brain science and understanding the brain and consciousness, and some of these writers, and they're spewing out 2001 Odyssey consistently, and 3 books that I've just read, and these are, and I'm just thinking this is all propaganda stuff. So I said, let me watch these videos, and all it was about was the future, man's destiny. Talks about man. These are old movies, and this is like was talking about the future, and it's really talking about man and machinery and the age of really transhumanism, which is a religion. I'll have to talk more about that in the future, because it's so real. It's so real. It's so real. It's surreal. Anyway, let me finish up here. So, where was I? Talking about the different planets here. His theory proposes that the planets Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune control the direction of the convection convective motions within the sun, which generates a solar magnetic field. They do so because they play the major role in moving the sun about the common center of mass of the solar system. As the solar cycle builds up to a maximum, so certain configurations of all the planets at different stages play a part in disrupting the magnetic field of the sun by means of the tidal tug due to gravitation of the planets on the hot gases of the sun. Thus, the planets play a role in the modulation of Earth's magnetic field by the solar wind. He's also proposing, Percy, that the tidal tug of the planets on the hot gases trapped within our magnetosphere will, because of resonance, lock some of the vibrations of the Earth's field in step with the planetary movements. The resulting fluctuations of the Earth's field are picked up by the nervous system of the fetus and yours, which acts like, but from a very before you're born, which acts like an antenna, and these synchronize the internal biological clocks of the fetus, which control the moment of birth. The tuning of the fetal magnetic antenna is carried on by the genes which it inherits, and these to some extent will determine its basic genetically inherited personality characteristics. Thus, the positions of the planets at birth are not altering what we have inherited genetically, but are labeling our basic inherent personality characteristics. That's brilliant stuff. That's brilliant stuff. And so here's the last bit. Some planets act directly on the Earth's atmosphere, not only through the sun wind. Earth magnetic field has different bands of frequency from few minutes to several years. It is known that one frequency is connected to the moon, daily lunar magnetic variations, and we're going to talk a lot more about the moon and these lunar tetrads that are coming up in April of next year. And so Percy's theory is based on research of biological consequences of fluctuations in Earth's magnetosphere. About neurological part of the theories, Seymour's theory, it is known that our neurological system contains electric currents. Fluctuations of geomagnetic field cause changes in neural network. Relative the relative position of the sun and Earth and our planet cause very complex tone that echoes in the Earth's magnetic field. We are genetically accorded not only to receive the whole symphony, but also to respond to the particular melody of these integral relationships with these planets. It tells us how to respond in future on particular planetary positions and can predetermine us for sounds we heard for the first time in the womb. Now this stuff is really way out. I'm not going to go into any more detail. You can read my blog post on this. But this is what's affecting us. These solar cycles, our solar system, is all affecting the evolution of our species. You, me, and everyone. And so we need to watch this more. And I'm going to be spending more time on this as we move forward. But I wanted to share this with you at this juncture, this turning point. So let's stay tuned. And anything that you want to share with me, I really appreciate it. If you want to leave comments in my blog, I appreciate that. Or leave any things that you'd like to share in the comments section of this podcast. Again, it's a glorious time to be here. What legacy are you going to leave? We're moving into a very, very, very intense period, especially for those in the United States. And don't think, if you're in Canada, that you're not going to be. We're not going to be affected too. And so, it's truly a glorious time to be here. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. If you want to join me on Facebook, my name is Kerrace, Kerrace Alexander. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.